Wow. Yeah, so that happened. Yeah, where do we even begin with this? So the Nostalgia Critic put out a review of Pink Floyd's The Wall, the movie. And yeah, people don't like it. Man, it got a lot of hate. Like, I just rewatched it in preparation for bringing about my thoughts, and the ratio of likes to dislikes was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. This was actually the first video of his that I've watched in almost a year, if not more. But this one just came out of nowhere, and I saw people talking about it, so I watched it. And it's not great, but I actually found myself really enjoying it. And I know people are going to be like, but I do. I honestly really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it both times that I watched it. This is coming from a progger. This is coming from a guy that loves Pink Floyd, like a Pink Floyd diehard. And The Wall was never my favorite project of theirs. And you can see that on a lot of my talks whenever I talk about Pink Floyd. The Wall didn't do that much for me. Like, I enjoyed it when I was a teenager because I had that teenage angst. But even as a teenager, I was like, this thing is kind of all over the place. I can understand the narrative flow that they are constructing here, but it didn't really... I don't know, I felt like they were trying to do too many things at once, or at least Roger Waters was trying to do too many things at once. The album, as well as the movie, has a really, really cool idea of the isolation that we feel towards one another, specifically in the context of a musician and the wall that he builds up between he and his audience. And I thought that was a really interesting item that could be explored. But I felt like The Wall specifically got really bogged down in war metaphors. There wasn't really a cohesive narrative flow. It was very episodic in how the story was presented. Yeah, I felt like it was too much of a Roger Waters project and not enough of a Pink Floyd project. And that's just my own take on The Wall. So, what we've got with the Nostalgia Critic's take. Obviously, it's very surface level. It's very shallow. The jokes never really work. Like, there are a few where the most that I'll get is like that's it. Like, I'll just get a... And that's been the status quo for my enjoyment of his his videos up to this point anyway. But he does bring out, a few really interesting thoughts and some really good reflections. The idea of the high schoolers and having a backdrop of World War II, although a little bit misplaced. I don't think there's a good understanding of the parallels that were going between Roger Waters and how he was feeling at that time. It was more of like the kid's reflection of war and the atrocities of how war still bleeds into today. I think there was a little bit of a miscommunication between what was going on and how he was perceiving it. And I also feel like the second half, where we get into the In the Flesh, when it's revised, and they're doing the whole like hashtag thing, I think Doug Walker fell into the same trap that Roger Waters fell into, in that he was trying to do too much and didn't know how to orchestrate or set it out properly. At least Roger Waters had a number of years to really orchestrate and fine tune, whereas I believe Doug Walker probably only had about a month and a half or 2 months, because out of nowhere, Doug Walker just starts talking about how we can just criticize anybody and everybody on social media, and why let's just do that. Social media gives us a big platform. Twitter is able to give us these hashtags for everything, and which in and of itself is a really interesting idea, and it's something that could have been explored, but I don't know what it's doing here. I was just like, what is it doing here? Again, if you were to supplant it with a Pink Floyd's filter, by looking through it through The Wall and how that isolates us even further, I think that could have really said something. And I think it's so odd that some of the criticisms that Doug is raising are some of the criticisms that that he himself is falling into. Now, the final section of the review was like purely animated. I think it was by the game show reviewer. He does a lot of these like creature animation things. I really, really like that. I was blown away. And this is something that I can talk positively about the review. It was stunning. This type of animation was something that I found within Neil Gaiman's Mirror Mask. Like that's kind of what I was envisioning and what I could see. And I really, really liked how the Nostalgia Critic is interacting with the environment, almost like Roger Rabbit. That blew me away, especially with the criticism or the point that was raised within all these talking animals and creatures is within a visual medium, they had this whole other set of medium that they could play with. Visuals. They were no longer constricted just by the audio. They could have done something amazing with the visuals. And the animation that is in the wall is one of my favorites. And it's just so warped, it's so dark, it's so twisted, and it lends perfectly to all the moods and settings that are found within the wall. And this was something that was brought up. It's used very sparingly. And we really wanted to see a lot more of it and really develop these creatures. I wonder even if it would have benefited for being completely animated. So I do enjoy that kind of a response to the wall of, it's a visual medium, use it to the best abilities. You have the promises there, but you never fulfill it. And also, when I was looking at some of these creatures, this was kind of going through my head.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Yeah. So those are kind of some of my takes. I still don't understand why there's so much hate going onto it. The only thing that I can think of, and I'm not quite sure if I'm on the right page here, is that like the Nostalgia Critic has always had, well, not always, but in the past 3 or 4 years, there's been quite a bit of retaliation a little bit against him. And this probably started with Change the Channel. I think certain people are starting to see that it's just kind of beating a dead horse. The formula is a little bit stale. I mean, this isn't his first musical by far. They did Moulin Rouge and Les Miserables. At least those were the 2 that I saw. I don't know if he's done any since then. And the music itself, provided by Rob Scallon, it was all right. I mean, it definitely felt rushed and the production work was not professional, but again, they only had, 2 months to pump all this out, and I could tell that there was a lot of passion and a lot of love that went into it. And I think if they had maybe a full year to really polish everything out, it could have been all right. But yeah, Doug Walker can't sing, so maybe not do that. That was not good. If you were to look at the Nostalgia Critic's main audience, it's generally people like me, between the ages of like 35, maybe even 40, all the way to about maybe 18-year-olds, predominantly white males. And one thing that predominantly white males between the ages of 20 and 40, we love the wall. Not this guy in particular, but we love the wall. It's a critical darling. And that was something that I can't remember her name, the little furry girl. She was like, in all my years of judging, I have never seen a film that's been more deserving of like love and boredom or something along those lines. And I kind of feel that. But yeah, like we're the target demographic for both items. And when you start to criticize the wall, unless you have some really good takes and you have some clear opinions or really thought out evidence to back up some of these claims, you're going to piss people off. The wall has reached a pantheon, an untouchable pantheon within our stage right now, where you really got to be able to defend yourself. And I really don't think that they provided anything outside of a couple really fun jokes along the way. The last little thing that I wanted to touch upon was Corey Tyler being present in here. And I think his son is also in here. I thought he did a great job. I friggin' loved the latest Slipknot album. I wish they did a little bit more with him. And he actually addresses that at the very end of the Nostalgia Critics review. So I thought that was a nice little touch. And yeah, I think that's all about it. I can understand why there's so much hate. I'm surprised that there is so much hate. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was, as I mentioned, one of the first Nostalgia Critic videos that I actually enjoyed within the past year and a half. And I could tell that there was a lot of love that went into it. There was a lot of passion that went into it. And the amount of effort that went into this. Like, I always figured that Nostalgia Critic was like a few steps beyond a high school production. Like, that's always kind of been my own impression, just quality wise. It's just these guys that got together and wanted to make movies and have found a way to make it lucrative. And it's nothing more than that. And trying to hold him accountable to anything more than that, I think is a strong ask, even if he tries to sell himself as being more than that. I think this piece in particular kind of disillusioned a little bit on both sides. And I think maybe that's why there's so much hate towards it. I don't know. I'm just surprised that there is so much, and also not surprised knowing the demographic that both of these mediums are for. Anyway, rambling on way too much. I'm going to leave it there. What did you guys think about the Nostalgia Critics The Wall review? Again, I really don't like saying that these are reviews. They're more just entertainment of summaries of movies that have jokes thrown in. But what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Somewhere in between, kind of where I am. I loved it. I hated it. Yeah. Where did you guys fit? Let me know by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.